I used to think slow travel was a modern luxury until I learned how early humans did it. They didn't battle against time or distance. They flowed with seasons, stopping when the light faded, walking when the air smelled right. There was a patience to their progress that's almost medicinal. Now, when I can't sleep, I imagine myself in their footsteps. One breath, one step, no need to arrive. If you've ever wished sleep came as naturally as it did to our ancestors, let's trace their path together tonight. Imagine walking across a landscape where no straight roads exist, where every path curves with the land's natural shape. That was daily life before wheels. Without carts or paved highways, humans moved differently, not from point A to point B, but along contours of least resistance. They followed the logic of the earth itself. People didn't cover ground quickly in those days, but that wasn't the point. A study tracking modern hunter-gatherers shows they average about 6 miles daily, but their routes meander like rivers. They walk along ridgelines that offer vantage points, veer toward water sources when thirst strikes, detour around difficult terrain not with frustration but acceptance. Time wasn't measured in minutes per mile, but in daylight remaining and energy spent. Every footstep meant direct contact with the ground. You'd feel the texture change from packed earth to springy moss. Here twigs snap differently in dry versus damp conditions. Riverbanks served as natural highways, their sediments packed firm by seasonal floods. Animal trails became shared thoroughfares. Deer know the gentlest slopes after all. Ridges provided unobstructed views while avoiding flooded lowlands. These weren't roads so much as suggestions from the land itself. The rhythm was everything. Without schedules, the pace adapted to the day's needs. Slower on hot afternoons, more deliberate in rocky areas. Groups moved together, their speed, matching the slowest number since no one traveled alone. Rest happened when shade and water coincided, not because some arbitrary break time arrived. Studies of contemporary nomadic groups show this variable pacing actually conserves more energy than maintaining a steady speed. Distances weren't measured in miles, but in experiences. A day's journey might include stopping to gather berries, pausing at a viewpoint to scan for game, or waiting while someone pointed out edible mushrooms. Movement blended with other activities seamlessly, rather than being a separate travel time to endure. Archaeologists find ancient campsites spaced at these natural intervals, rarely more than what could be covered from sunrise to midday. Nightfall didn't mean falling short of some destination. When light faded, that meant enough walking had been done. Campsites were chosen for shelter and resources, not because they marked some predetermined daily quota. This fluid approach removed the modern anguish over making good time. If rains came, they waited. If the group felt energetic, they went farther. Simple as that. The constant sensory input kept minds engaged in the present. Unlike staring at a phone screen on a train, you'd notice which slopes grew the best nettles, which tree roots formed natural steps, where the breeze carried warning scents. Modern hikers call this trail brain, that alert yet relaxed state, where thoughts flow with the landscape. Early humans lived in this mode constantly. This intimacy with terrain created mental maps more detailed than any GPS. People knew not just locations, but how places connected through seasonal changes. A summer shortcut might become a winter bog. Bare hillside in autumn could be thick with spring greens. These mental charts were constantly updated through direct experience rather than downloaded as static data. The payoff was deep familiarity with environments that we now whiz past in cars. They knew which rocks stayed warm after sunset for sleeping, against which valleys echoed calls for communication, where to find materials for every need. Modern pavement covers these subtle relationships, but our brains still have the capacity to read landscapes this way. Next time you're walking somewhere, try this. Don't watch your step count or check the distance. Notice which way the land wants you to go, where the grade eases, where animals have worn paths, where the breeze feels coolest. That's how navigation worked for most of human history. And that's how we'll explore their methods for finding their way without maps in the yellow. Next section. Imagine walking across a landscape where no straight roads exist, where every path curves with the land's natural shape. That was daily life before wheels. Without carts or paved highways, humans moved differently, not from point A to point B, but along contours of least resistance. They followed the logic of the earth itself. People didn't cover ground quickly in those days, but that wasn't the point. A study tracking modern hunter-gatherers shows they average about 6 miles daily, but their routes meander like rivers. They walk along ridgelines that offer vantage points, veer toward water sources when thirst strikes, detour around difficult terrain, not with frustration, but acceptance. Time wasn't measured in minutes per mile, but in daylight remaining, and energy spent. Every footstep meant direct contact with the ground. You'd feel the texture change from packed earth to springy moss. Hear twigs snap differently in dry versus damp conditions. Riverbanks served as natural highways, their sediments packed firm by seasonal floods. Animal trails became shared thoroughfares. Deer know the gentlest slopes after all. Ridges provided unobstructed views while avoiding flooded lowlands. These weren't roads so much as suggestions from the land itself. The rhythm was everything. Without schedules, the pace adapted to the day's needs. Slower on hot afternoons, more deliberate in rocky areas. Groups moved together, their speed matching the slowest number since no one traveled alone. Rest happened when shade and water coincided, not because some arbitrary break time arrived. Studies of contemporary nomadic groups show this variable pacing actually conserves more energy than maintaining a steady speed. Distances weren't measured in miles, but in experiences. A day's journey might include stopping to gather berries, pausing at a viewpoint to scan for game, or waiting while someone pointed out edible mushrooms. Movement blended with other activities seamlessly, rather than being a separate travel time to endure. Archaeologists find ancient campsites spaced at these natural intervals, rarely more than what could be covered from sunrise to midday. Nightfall didn't mean falling short of some destination. When light faded, that meant enough walking had been done. Campsites were chosen for shelter and resources, not because they marked some predetermined daily quota. This fluid approach removed the modern anguish over making good time. If rains came, they waited. If the group felt energetic, they went farther. Simple as that. The constant sensory input kept minds engaged in the present. Unlike staring at a phone screen on a train, you'd notice which slopes grew the best nettles, which tree roots formed natural steps, where the breeze carried warning scents. Modern hikers call this trail brain, that alert yet relaxed state, where thoughts flow with the landscape. Early humans lived in this mode constantly. This intimacy with terrain created mental maps more detailed than any GPS. People knew not just locations, but how places connected through seasonal changes. A summer shortcut might become a winter bog. A bare hillside in autumn could be thick with spring greens. These mental charts were constantly updated through direct experience rather than downloaded as static data. The payoff was deep familiarity with environments that we now whiz past in cars. They knew which rocks stayed warm after sunset for sleeping, against which valleys echoed calls for communication, where to find materials for every need. Modern pavement covers these subtle relationships, but our brains still have the capacity to read landscapes this way. Next time you're walking somewhere, try this. Don't watch your step count or check the distance. Notice which way the land wants you to go, where the grade eases, where animals have worn paths, where the breeze feels coolest. That's how navigation worked for most of human history. And that's how we'll explore their methods for finding their way without maps in the next section. Early humans didn't need GPS or road signs. They had nature's navigation system wired into their daily lives. Imagine knowing exactly where water was just by spotting the way willow leaves flip silver in the breeze. That was basic survival knowledge, not some wilderness hack. These subtle cues were everywhere once you learned to see them. The wind carried useful information too. A whiff of pine meant mountains were near, while salt on the air signaled coastlines miles before they came into view. Birds weren't just something to eat. They were arrows pointing the way. Geese, flying in formation, didn't just mark changing seasons. Their V-shaped paths led straight to seasonal wetlands, perfect for camping. Studies tracking modern hunter-gatherers show they notice landscape details most of us walk right past. A broken twig here, disturbed soil there. These weren't superpowers, just skills honed over generations of paying attention. Daytime. Navigation worked through simple observations anyone could learn. The length of shadows gave direction, while lichen growth on trees, always thicker on the north side, served as natural compasses. At night, star patterns took over, but even then, it wasn't about memorizing charts. Regular routes got encoded. In songs passed down to kids, lyrics like, "Turn where the lightning struck oak leans west," serving as both map and cultural memory. This constant environmental dialogue created mental maps more precise than any app. Where we see random trees, they saw navigation markers. A particular rock formation might mean good camping near here, while certain bird calls warned of predators ahead. Modern tracking experts can still read these signs, but for our ancestors, it was just how you got from breakfast to dinner without getting lost. The education started young. Children didn't learn from textbooks, but by walking alongside adults, hearing stories that turned landmarks into memory aids. That bent tree, that's where Grandma outsmarted a leopard. This spring, the campsite we use when the berries ripen. Each journey reinforced the lessons through repetition and direct experience, not abstract study. Night travel had its own rules. Without flashlights, people used the moon's phases to plan movements, avoiding new moon periods when darkness was total. Star patterns shifted predictably through the seasons, acting as a celestial calendar and compass combined. But even simple tricks helped, noticing how open areas stayed lighter, or how some rocks retained warmth for sitting spots during rests. Smell played a bigger role than we'd expect. Beyond the obvious scents like salt water or pine, subtler. Odors marked specific places. A marshy area's damp earth smell differed from a riverbank's mineral tone. Rotting logs meant mushrooms nearby, while certain flowers signaled edible roots below. Modern noses, buried in phones and perfume, miss most of this olfactory information our ancestors relied upon daily. The payoff was navigation so intuitive that getting genuinely lost was almost impossible. Even in unfamiliar territory, general principles applied. Follow game trails to water, head downhill if disoriented, watch bird flight patterns. Unlike our rigid street grids, this system adapted to seasons, weather, and terrain without needing updates or batteries. Now think about how we navigate today. Glued to screens, missing turns when service drops, anxiously recalculating routes. Our ancestors moved through landscapes like we move through our own homes in the dark, effortlessly, knowing each creek and contour. That confidence didn't come from technology, but from lifetimes of direct experience we've mostly replaced. With apps, next time you're outside, try turning off the GPS. Notice which direction the breeze comes from, which plants cluster in shady spots, how the sunlight angles through branches. You might start sensing remnants of that old navigation system still, buried in your brain. And that leads us to their next clever adaptation, telling time without clocks by reading nature's seasonal signals. Imagine walking across a landscape where no straight roads exist, where every path curves with the land's natural shape. That was daily life before wheels. Without carts or paved highways, humans moved differently, not from point A to point B, but along contours of least resistance. They followed the logic of the earth itself. People didn't cover ground quickly in those days, but that wasn't the point. A study tracking modern hunter-gatherers shows they average about 6 miles daily, but their routes meander like rivers. They walk along ridgelines that offer vantage points, veer toward water sources when thirst strikes, detour around difficult terrain, not with frustration but acceptance. Time wasn't measured in minutes per mile, but in daylight remaining in energy spent. Every footstep meant direct contact with the ground. You'd feel the texture change from packed earth to springy moss. Hear twigs snap differently in dry versus damp conditions. Riverbanks served as natural highways, their sediments packed firm by seasonal floods. Animal trails became shared thoroughfares. Deer know the gentlest slopes, after all. Ridges provided unobstructed views, while avoiding flooded lowlands. These weren't roads so much as suggestions from the land itself. The rhythm was everything. Without schedules, the pace adapted to the day's needs. Slower on hot afternoons, more deliberate in rocky areas. Groups moved together, their speed, matching the slowest member since no one traveled alone. Rest happened when shade and water coincided, not because some arbitrary break time arrived. Studies of contemporary nomadic groups show this variable pacing actually conserves more energy than maintaining a steady speed. Distances weren't measured in miles, but in experiences. A day's journey might include stopping to gather berries, pausing at a viewpoint to scan for game, or waiting while someone pointed out edible mushrooms. Movement blended with other activities seamlessly, rather than being a separate travel time to endure. Archaeologists find ancient campsites spaced at these natural intervals, rarely more than what could be covered from sunrise to midday. Nightfall didn't mean falling short of some destination. When light faded, that meant enough walking had been done. Campsites were chosen for shelter and resources, not because they marked some predetermined daily quota. This fluid approach removed the modern anguish over making good time. If rains came, they waited. If the group felt energetic, they went farther. Simple as that. The constant sensory input kept minds engaged in the present. Unlike staring at a phone screen on a train, you'd notice which slopes grew the best nettles, which tree roots formed natural steps, where the breeze carried warning scents. Modern hikers call this trail brain, that alert yet relaxed state, where thoughts flow with the landscape. Early humans lived in this mode constantly. This intimacy with terrain created mental maps more detailed than any GPS. People knew not just locations, but how places connected through seasonal changes. A summer shortcut might become a winter bog. Bare hillside in autumn could be thick with spring greens. These mental charts were constantly updated through direct experience rather than downloaded as static data. The payoff was deep familiarity with environments that we now whiz past in cars. They knew which rocks stayed warm after sunset for sleeping, against which valleys echoed calls for communication, where to find materials for every need. Modern pavement covers these subtle relationships, but our brains still have the capacity to read landscapes this way. Next time you're walking somewhere, try this. Don't watch your step count or check the distance. Notice which way the land wants you to go, where the grade eases, where animals have worn paths, where the breeze feels coolest. That's how navigation worked for most of human history. And that's how we'll explore their methods for finding their way without maps in the next section. Early humans didn't need GPS or road signs. They had nature's navigation system wired into their daily lives. Imagine knowing exactly where water was just by spotting the way willow leaves flip silver in the breeze. That was basic survival knowledge, not some wilderness hack. These subtle cues were everywhere once you learned to see them. The wind carried useful information too. A whiff of pine meant mountains were near, while salt on the air signaled coastlines miles before they came into view. Birds weren't just something to eat. They were arrows pointing the way. Geese, flying in formation, didn't just mark changing seasons. Their V-shaped paths led straight to seasonal wetlands, perfect for camping. Studies tracking modern hunter-gatherers show they notice landscape details most of us walk right past. A broken twig here, disturbed soil there. These weren't superpowers, just skills honed over generations of paying attention. Daytime. Navigation worked through simple observations anyone could learn. The length of shadows gave direction, while lichen growth on trees, always thicker on the north side, served as natural compasses. At night, star patterns took over, but even then, it wasn't about memorizing charts. Regular routes got encoded. In songs passed down to kids, lyrics like, "Turn where the lightning struck oak leans west," serving as both map and cultural memory. This constant environmental dialogue created mental maps more precise than any app. Where we see random trees, they saw navigation markers. A particular rock formation might mean good camping near here, while certain bird calls warned of predators ahead. Modern tracking experts can still read these signs, but for our ancestors, it was just how you got from breakfast to dinner without getting lost. The education started young. Children didn't learn from textbooks, but by walking, alongside adults, hearing stories that turned landmarks into memory aids. That bent tree, that's where Grandma outsmarted a leopard. This spring, the campsite we use when the berries ripen. Each journey reinforced the lessons through repetition and direct experience, not abstract study. Night travel had its own rules. Without flashlights, people used the moon's phases to plan movements, avoiding new moon periods when darkness was total. Star patterns shifted predictably through the seasons, acting as a celestial calendar and compass combined. But even simple tricks helped, noticing how open areas stayed lighter or how some rocks retained warmth for sitting spots during rests. Smell played a bigger role than we'd expect. Beyond the obvious scents like saltwater or pine, subtler odors marked specific places. A marshy area's damp earth smell differed from a riverbank's mineral tongue. Rotting logs meant mushrooms nearby, while certain flowers signaled edible roots below. Modern noses, buried in phones and perfume, miss most of this olfactory information our ancestors relied upon daily. The payoff was navigation, so intuitive that getting genuinely lost was almost impossible. Even in unfamiliar territory, general principles applied. Follow game trails to water, head downhill if disoriented, watch bird flight patterns. Unlike our rigid street grids, this system adapted to seasons, weather, and terrain without needing updates or batteries. Now think about how we navigate today. Glued to screens, missing turns when service drops, anxiously recalculating routes. Our ancestors moved through landscapes like we move through our own homes in the dark, effortlessly, knowing each creek and contour. That confidence didn't come from technology, but from lifetimes of direct experience we've mostly replaced. With apps, next time you're outside, try turning off the GPS. Notice which direction the breeze comes from, which plants cluster in shady spots, how the sunlight angles through branches. You might start sensing remnants of that old navigation system still, buried in your brain. And that leads us to their next clever adaptation, telling time. without clocks, by reading nature's seasonal signals. Early humans didn't need calendars plastered with meetings and deadlines. Their schedule was written in the landscape itself, in the way willow branches turned glossy green when it was time to move to higher ground, or how rabbit fur grew noticeably thinner as winter faded. These subtle changes weren't just observations. They were instructions. When certain tree buds opened, that meant winter was thawing in the mountain valleys ahead. No debate, no planning apps, just action based on signals we'd need a field guide to notice today. Archaeologists find campsites that align perfectly with berry seasons and nut harvests. At one dig site in Europe, researchers noticed fire, pits surrounded by blackberry seeds, but only in soil layers corresponding to late summer. These people didn't just happen upon ripe fruit. They arrived exactly when nature's pantry opened. Modern sleep studies show our bodies still respond to these ancient seasonal patterns, even if we ignore them. Your urge to sleep more in winter? That's not laziness. It's biology remembering how our ancestors lived. The first frost wasn't a crisis. It was a reminder. As deer herds moved to sheltered lowlands, people followed, not out of panic, but because animals had better. Cold weather instincts. Oral histories from indigenous groups often describe starving times not as disasters, but as expected pauses between abundance. Imagine viewing food scarcity like seasonal rain, inconvenient but temporary, not cause for sleepless nights. Their bodies adapted in ways ours can't anymore. Without central heating, they noticed minute temperature shifts we'd miss entirely. A 2-degree drop meant something practical. Time to gather extra firewood, not just adjust the thermostat. Studies of modern hunter-gatherers show they can detect humidity changes that predict rain hours. Early humans didn't pack suitcases for their journeys. They carried what they needed in their hands or slung across their backs. A typical load might include a hide sack with stone tools, a fire starter kit, maybe a carved figurine for luck. That's it. No spare clothes, no extra shoes, no backups of anything. Kids as young as 4 carried their own small bundles, learning early that possessions were things you used, not things that owned you. Archaeologists keep finding proof of how little they carried. Along ancient migration routes, they uncover tool caches, carefully stashed supplies meant for future trips. One site might have extra spear points, another hides for repairing footwear. These weren't lost items, but purposeful deposits, like leaving a water bottle in your locker knowing you'll need it tomorrow. The caches show how early humans planned ahead without dragging everything with them everywhere. Home wasn't a fixed location for them. It was wherever the group stopped to rest and share food. Imagine sleeping in a different spot most nights, yet never feeling homeless because your people surrounded you. Studies of modern nomadic tribes show this mindset creates incredible adaptability. Kids raised this way can fall asleep anywhere, undisturbed by new surroundings, as long as familiar voices murmur nearby. Their bodies actually changed from this lifestyle. Carrying loads every day altered spines and gaits into ultra-efficient walking machines. Modern researchers found their posture saved energy with each step, crucial when you travel miles daily. Even their feet adapted, becoming wider and stronger from constant barefoot movement over varied terrain. We've lost those physical adaptations after generations of sitting and wearing restrictive shoes. The mental effects were just as important. Without cabinets full of possessions to organize, protect, or clean, their minds stayed focused on present needs. No tossing and turning over whether they packed enough gear or forgot something important. Modern ultralight hikers report similar clarity, that strange lightness you feel after ditching unnecessary items from your backpack. Early humans lived with that feeling constantly. Traveling light affected sleep in unexpected ways. Without material attachments, there was less to worry about at night. Think about how your mind races before bed. Did I lock the door? Pay that bill? Early humans didn't have those anxiety triggers. Their security came from skills and community, not locked doors or insurance policies. Studies show modern minimalists report better sleep quality, suggesting we might still be wired for simpler living. Children learned this lightweight lifestyle from infancy. Babies rode in slings, while toddlers walked holding hide straps, training little legs for the nomadic life. By 6 or 7, kids carried their own loads, not burdens, but contributions to the group. This taught them early that survival depended on participation, not possessions. Unlike modern kids with rooms full of toys, their treasures were practical items they'd use daily. The tools they carried reveal ingenious efficiency. A single sharp stone could skin game, carve wood, scrape hides, or dig roots. An empty gourd became a water carrier, cooking pot, or storage container. People became masters of repurposing, seeing multiple uses in every item. Compare that to our kitchen drawers full of single-purpose gadgets gathering dust. Their most valuable possessions weighed nothing: knowledge. How to make fire and rain, which plants healed wounds, where to find seasonal foods. These mental tools mattered far more than physical objects. Elders carried lifetimes of this knowledge, making them the most vital belongings any group had. You couldn't lose these assets or leave them behind by accident. Archaeologists find evidence of this mindset everywhere. Cave sites show the same tools reused for generations. Handles worn smooth from centuries of grips. Broken artifacts, reshaped into new tools rather than discarded. Even trash piles contain carefully sorted bones and shells saved for future use. Nothing got wasted because everything had to be carried forward. Modern campers experience echoes of this simplicity. There's that pared-down feeling when you're carrying only what fits in your backpack. Decisions become clearer when choices are limited to essentials. Early humans lived with that clarity daily, their minds uncluttered by the thousand small worries possessions create. Groups moved faster because they weren't bogging down with extras. When the season changed or resources dwindled, they could pick up and go without debate. No storage units to empty, no furniture to move. Just gather the few necessary items and walk. This fluidity made them resilient in ways we can barely imagine now. The payoff was freedom we've forgotten. Freedom from stuff anxiety, from maintenance. Burdens from attachment to possessions that ultimately own their owners. That ancient likeness lingers in us still, explaining why we feel such relief when we finally donate unused clothes or clear out clutter. Your ancestors would smile seeing that garage sale. They knew something we're still relearning. Now, let's reconstruct what an ordinary day looked like when your whole world fit in your arms. Not some dramatic migration, just the steady rhythm of steps between sunup and sundown. Their mornings began with sunlight filtering through hide shelters, not blaring alarms. People woke gradually as the air warmed, stretching out stiff muscles from sleeping on the ground. There was no frantic rush to beat traffic or make meetings. First tasks were simple: checking supplies, banking last night's coals for the day's fire, rolling up hides used as bedding. They left subtle markers for others too: stacked stones, bent branches, signs saying, "We passed this way," without words. The group moved at what modern hikers call an amble pace, about 2.5 miles per hour. That speed wasn't chosen randomly. Studies show it's the most efficient for covering distance while conserving energy. But speed wasn't the point. This leisurely pace allowed constant observation of surroundings. Someone might spot edible mushrooms. Another notice fresh animal tracks. The whole group would pause to investigate without frustration. No one yelled, "We're falling behind schedule," because schedules didn't exist. Elders set the tempo, their slower walking ensuring knowledge transfer happened naturally. Kids learned by walking beside them, hearing stories about which plants healed, wounds, or how to predict rain. The group never outpaced its slowest member. That would be unthinkable. Modern hikers might find this frustrating, but it created a built-in rest rhythm. Frequent pauses kept everyone fresh rather than exhausted. At day's end, meals happened on the move. Lunch wasn't a sit-down affair, but constant grazing. Berries picked from bushes, nuts cracked while walking. Archaeologists find dental records showing even wear patterns from this steady chewing. No overeating, no crash after a heavy midday meal, just continuous fuel intake matching their energy output perfectly. The walking itself aided digestion too, unlike our post-lunch slump at desks. Afternoons were for teaching practical skills. The group might stop in a clearing where adults showed kids how to make simple tools or identify animal signs. These weren't separate lessons, but woven into the journey itself. A patch of clay became a chance to demonstrate pottery. A stream bank turned into a fishing tutorial. Children learned by doing at the perfect pace for their development. Campsite selection followed strict but unwritten rules. Near water, but not too close. Mosquitoes and flash floods made riverbanks risky. Sheltered, but not trapped. A small valley could become a death trap if predators came. Good sight lines in multiple directions were crucial. Modern survival experts still use these same criteria today, proving their effectiveness across millennia. Evening fires did more than provide warmth. That flickering orange light served as nature's melatonin trigger. Scientists now know firelights. Specific wavelength helps regulate circadian rhythms better than electric lights. Stories shared around flames weren't just entertainment. The combination of rhythmic speech patterns and dancing, light induced deep relaxation. No one needed sleep aids because their entire evening ritual was designed for natural rest. The walk itself prepared bodies for sleep in ways we've forgotten. Constant varied terrain meant muscles got balanced use. No stiff necks from staring at screens all day. Changing elevations worked the heart gently, while fresh air kept oxygen levels optimal. Even carrying light loads built endurance without overtaxing anyone. Compare that to modern workouts followed by hours of sitting. Sound played a crucial role too. The steady rhythm of footsteps, occasional bird calls, wind through grass. These natural white noises calmed minds in ways our noisy cities prevent. At night, the group's synchronized breathing created a collective sleep rhythm. Studies show people still sleep better when hearing others' regular breathing patterns. This wasn't some primitive struggle, but a finely tuned system. Every element, from walking speed to rest stops, optimized human biology for both movement and recovery. Modern life fractures these natural cycles into disconnected fragments. Intense exercise, then utter stillness. Rushed meals, then bloated. Feasts. Their days flowed as one continuous whole. The payoff was days that felt complete rather than hectic. Without artificial time pressures, activities found their natural duration. Tasks took however long they needed, bounded only by daylight, and human energy levels. There was satisfaction in this rhythm we rarely experience now. You felt glimpses of it on good hiking trips, that contented tiredness where sleep comes effortlessly. Next time you're rushing through your day, try this thought experiment. Imagine moving at that 2.5 miles per hour amble. Notice how your perception shifts when speed isn't the priority. See if you don't start spotting details that usually blur past. That's the mindset we'll explore further as we look at their most unexpected travel companions, the animals that taught them how to move through landscapes. Early humans didn't just hunt animals, they learned from them. Wolves were particularly useful teachers. Their tracks showed where river ice was thickest, marking safe crossing points without any trial and error. When you saw wolf prints heading straight across a frozen stream, that was nature's way of saying, this route works. Birds offered different lessons. The side of a tree where nests clustered revealed which direction offered the most wind. Protection handy knowledge when setting up camp. Even insects gave guidance. Ant colonies only thrived where water was close to the surface, turning tiny mounds into natural well markers. Archaeological sites prove this connection. Dig after dig shows human settlements overlapping with animal migration routes. These weren't accidents, they were strategic choices. Why waste energy blazing new trails when deer already found the easiest paths through mountains? Modern tracking experts can still read these landscape clues, though most of us walk right past them. A broken twig here, disturbed soil there. To early humans, these were as obvious as road signs are to us. The cooperation went both ways. Humans noticed how deer paused before entering open areas, a behavior that signaled potential danger. Copying that hesitation saved lives. Ravens circling overhead didn't just mean carrion, they often led to water sources. Over generations, this knowledge became second nature. Kids learned that following bee flights could lead to honey, while watching squirrel movements revealed where nuts were stored. Pacing mattered too. Walking behind animals created an automatic speed regulator. Herd animals move at sustainable rates, fast enough to cover ground, slow enough to conserve energy. Early humans who matched that tempo avoided exhaustion. Modern hikers experience this when they unconsciously match their steps to a companion's rhythm. That drill synchronization kept groups moving efficiently without anyone calling out directions. The sensory awareness required was intense. Early humans could distinguish between old and fresh tracks by subtle differences in soil moisture. They knew which bird calls signaled predators versus routine chatter. Modern studies show hunter-gatherer children develop this environmental literacy by age 6, skills our kids now learn through nature documentaries instead of direct experience. Water finding provides a perfect example. While we look for streams or ponds, early humans read smaller signs. Willow trees always grow. Near water, their presence meant digging a few feet would hit moisture. Dragonflies hovering in one spot often marked seeps or springs. Even the way moss grew on rocks indicated water flow directions. These weren't special talents, just knowledge passed down through constant practice. Night travel brought different animal guides. Owl hoots helped estimate distances in darkness. Bats swooping in predictable patterns revealed open flyways through dense terrain. The absence of normal nighttime sounds often signaled danger before any visual clue appeared. Modern soldiers still train in these observation techniques, proving their timeless value. The payoff was a mental state we've mostly lost. Constant environmental engagement left little room for anxious thoughts. When your focus stays on immediate sensory input, the feel of wind shifting, the scent of rain coming, there's no bandwidth for worrying about tomorrow's problems. Modern therapists call this mindfulness, but early humans just called it staying alive. Children absorbed these skills through games. Spotting animal tracks became competitions. Identifying plants turned into memory challenges. Elders would quiz kids on which berries were safe by having them taste harmless varieties first. Mistakes happened, but the stakes ensured quick learning. Compare that to today's bubble-wrapped childhoods, where the biggest risk is a scraped knee. The knowledge transfer happened constantly, not in scheduled lessons. A bird's sudden alarm call became an impromptu demonstration of predator awareness. Finding a half-eaten carcass showed how to read kill patterns. Even animal droppings offered information. The contents revealed what foods were available nearby. Nothing was wasted. Every observation had potential value. Modern parallels exist. If you know where to look, farmers still watch animal behavior to predict weather. Backpackers follow game trails through rough country. But for most of us, this connection has faded. We consult weather apps instead of watching clouds, use GPS instead of reading landscapes. The irony is that technology often leads us into danger. That animal wisdom would avoid like hikers stranded because they ignored, gathering storm signs their ancestors would have recognized instantly. The real loss isn't just practical skills, but a mindset. Early humans approached nature with humble curiosity, seeing themselves as students rather than masters. That attitude brought rewards no technology can match, an unshakable sense of belonging in the world. Next time you're outdoors, try it. Stop looking at your phone and start reading the landscape like your ancestors did. You might be surprised how much it still has to teach you. Now let's see how children thrived in this mobile lifestyle, a world where "are we there yet?" didn't exist because the journey itself was home. Children growing up in these mobile communities never asked, "Are we there yet?" because the journey itself was home. From as early as they could walk, kids held onto hide straps tied to adults' waists, learning balance while covering real distances. This wasn't coddling, it was practical training. By age 5, most could hike several miles without complaints that would make modern parents cringe. Their classrooms had no walls. Games doubled as survival training, spotting distant landmarks earned praise. Identifying edible plants turned into competitions. Kids would track toy prey made of sticks and fur, developing observation skills that might one day mean dinner. Unlike today's playgrounds with safety surfacing, their play areas were unpredictable landscapes where a misstep could mean scrapes or falls. But that's how they learned risk assessment, through direct experience, not warnings. Storytelling happened on the move. Elders walked at the group's center, weaving survival lessons into tales about antelopes outsmarting leopards, or why certain berries were forbidden. The stories matched their walking pace, about 60 beats per minute, the same rhythm. That now induces relaxation in sleep studies. Kids absorbed navigation cues through repetitive choruses. "Turn where the lightning struck, oak leans west" wasn't poetry. It was a GPS waypoint their muscles remembered. Bedtime wasn't a power struggle. Children slept when tired, often nodding, off to the rhythm of walking or firelight flicker. No artificial lights disrupted their melatonin cycles. No vibrating phones startled them awake. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer groups show their kids sleep more soundly than ours, despite primitive conditions, probably because they've spent all day actually using their bodies instead of staring at screens. The constant movement built physical resilience we've lost. Toddlers developed strong ankles from walking uneven terrain. Older kids carried small loads, a water pouch, their own sleeping hide, learning responsibility through contribution. Compare that to modern kids, whose heaviest lift might be a backpack full of worksheets. Archaeologists find ancient children's bones show stress patterns from active lifestyles, not the posture issues plaguing today's device-hunched generation. Knowledge transfer happened organically. When someone spotted edible mushrooms, the whole group stopped so kids could learn identification. Cloud patterns became impromptu weather lessons. Even breaks for bladder relief turned into plant studies. Certain weeds indicated good digging spots for water. This wasn't homeschooling. It was life schooling, where every moment offered something to observe and remember. Spatial skills developed differently. Without fixed addresses, kids created mental maps using natural markers: the twisted juniper, the red dirt outcrop. Modern studies show mobile children develop better navigation abilities than their settled peers. They could recall locations visited just once years earlier, a skill that would put most adults with GPS to shame. Discipline looked different too. Forget timeout's natural consequences taught the best lessons. A child who wandered too far might miss lunch being served. One who ignored warnings about prickly plants got stung. Elders rarely scolded. They let experience be the teacher. The group's survival depended on quick learning, so coddling dangerous behavior wasn't an option. Rites of passage marked growing competence. A child's first successful fire-making earned celebration. Catching their first fish meant joining the adults for storytelling. These milestones built confidence through real achievement, not participation trophies. The bar was set at practical survival skills, not abstract test scores. Modern parents worry about screen time adding up. These parents cared about plant identification totals. Not knowing 10 useful plants by age 7 was the equivalent of failing basic literacy today. Kids took pride in adding to their mental field guide, spotting new berries, recognizing animal warning calls. Knowledge was status, not how many. Toys they owned. The payoff was emotional resilience we rarely see now. These children adapted to changes effortlessly, new locations, shifting groups, unpredictable weather. Bedtime in unfamiliar spots didn't faze them, because home was wherever their people were. Modern kids melt down when sleepovers disrupt routines. Theirs slept soundly on different ground nightly if their family was near. They also learned patience early. No instant gratification existed. Food required gathering, water needed finding. Fire took effort to create. Waiting wasn't frustrating. It was just how life worked. This may explain why modern hunter-gatherer children show less impulsivity than industrialized kids, despite having fewer structured activities. The contrast with contemporary childhood couldn't be starker. We bubble-wrap kids from risks, yet wonder why they lack confidence. We schedule nature time between school and soccer while they lived immersed in it. Most ironically, we medicate attention disorders in children whose ancestors would have considered sitting still for hours the real abnormality. But traces remain in odd places. Watch how kids today still gravitate towards sticks as toys, how they light up when allowed to build forts. That's the old wiring trying to function in a world it wasn't designed for, one where play happens in designated areas with safety. Mats instead of across landscapes that teach as they challenge. Next time you see a kid fidgeting in a classroom, imagine how they'd thrive in that ancient rhythm, walking, learning, contributing alongside adults. Then consider how we might recreate slices of that freedom in backyards and parks. The path isn't completely lost. We've just paved over most of its markers. Now let's explore how stories did more than entertain. They mapped entire landscapes into memory using rhythm and repetition. You'll never hear "Once Upon a Time" the same way again. Early humans didn't just tell stories, they walked them into existence. Picture this: a group moving along a riverbank when someone spots a particular twisted tree. Suddenly, an elder begins. This is where the trickster dropped the moon. That tree wasn't just a landmark, it was a bookmark in a living story. Every bend in the river, every odd-shaped rock had a tale attached. The landscape became a memory palace where geography and mythology intertwined. You wouldn't need to memorize stories when the land itself jogged your memory. The rhythm of walking shaped how stories unfolded. At about 60 steps per minute matching, our natural heart rate, the pacing created a hypnotic flow. Anthropologists studying oral traditions notice this cadence pops up across cultures. It's why fairy tales often feel like they sway when spoken aloud. That steady beat helped cement details into memory. Imagine learning your family history, not through books, but through miles walked together, each step reinforcing the narrative like a metronome. These weren't quick tales told around campfires. Stories stretched across landscapes and days, unfolding in sync with the journey. A creation myth might begin at dawn near a spring, pause when the group stopped to forage, and resume as they crossed a ridge at sunset. The breaks weren't interruptions. They were dramatic beats timed to the Earth's rotation. Compare that to today's podcasts, where we speed up playback to save time. Our ancestors understood some things shouldn't be rushed. Modern sleep research explains why this worked so well. That 60-beat rhythm induces theta brainwaves, the same state you're in right before sleep. The stories weren't just entertaining. They were subtly preparing minds for rest. Think about how children nod off during car rides. The motion lulls them. Early humans had that same soothing effect baked into daily life through walking narratives. No melatonin gummies required. Repetition added another layer. The same stories recycled for generations, each telling polishing them smoother. Kids didn't hear variations. They learned fixed versions where every and then landed like clockwork. This predictability calmed anxious minds. Today's parents know this trick. The 50th reading of Goodnight Moon works because kids crave that exact replication. Early humans weaponized the craving for cultural preservation. The delivery method mattered too. Without written words, stories lived in bodies. Tellers gestured at landmarks. As they passed them, a hand wave toward the Coyote's Canyon made the tale visceral. Voices rose when climbing hills, softened during descents. The physicality of walking infused stories with muscle memory. Even now, you can probably hum a childhood song faster than recite a textbook paragraph. They exploited that neural wiring centuries before neuroscience confirmed it. Content followed function. Survival tips hid in plain sight within these tales. A story about why the possum plays dead might actually teach predator evasion. The description of where the thunderbird nests could encode directions to summer foraging grounds. Entertaining fables carried practical payloads, like coloring vegetables into sesame. Street segments so kids unknowingly learn nutrition. The sensory experience amplified recall. A story about winter winds howling didn't just describe it. You felt the actual breeze as you walked. Tales of cracking ice came alive when your feet crunched frozen puddles. Modern virtual reality tries and fails to replicate this total immersion. Meanwhile, early humans had nature providing 4D storytime with surround sound. Children learned differently in this system. Asking, "Are we there yet?" made no sense when the walk was the lesson. Instead, they chime in on story refrains, their little legs keeping time with the rhythm. Misremembering details brought gentle corrections from elders, no grades, just real-time feedback loops. By adulthood, these stories wired their brains to see landscapes as narrative maps. A modern hiker sees trees. Their ancestors saw chapter headings. We've lost more than just the stories. We've lost their delivery system. Podcasts during commutes don't hit the same because sitting in traffic lacks the somatic component. Reading bedtime stories under electric lights skips the theta wave-inducing rhythm. Even audiobooks fall short because your body isn't moving in sync with the narrative. The magic was in the full body experience, yet traces remain. Have you ever walked while explaining something and noticed your thoughts flow better? That's the old wiring still functioning. Or gotten drowsy on a long drive, listening to a familiar album. That's the theta wave effect in action. Our biology still responds to these ancient patterns. We've just removed most opportunities to trigger them. The payoff wasn't just preserved culture, it was regulated nervous systems. Days spent walking with these rhythmic narratives created natural transitions into rest. No need for wind-down routines when your entire day cycled between movement and storytelling at biologically optimal rhythms. Modern sleep specialists should take notes. Now consider how this storytelling method shaped sleep itself. If daytime was spent walking tailies into memory, how did night amplify that effect? The answer reveals why they slept so deeply without memory foam or white noise machines. But that's a story best saved for the next section, though preferably one we'd tell while covering a few miles together. Early humans didn't think about sleep the way we do. They didn't need to. Sleep wasn't something they had to get or schedule. It just happened, like breathing. Their whole lifestyle made it inevitable. Imagine never worrying about insomnia, because your day naturally led you into rest. That was their reality. Their sleep wasn't ruled by alarm clocks, but by sunlight and something we barely notice, the Earth's electromagnetic fields. Natural forces helped regulate their bodies without them even knowing it. Studies show modern nomadic groups still respond to these subtle cues, sleeping deeper than people in cities. We've built homes that block these signals, then wonder why we're tired. Movement played a big role too. All that walking kept their muscles loose. Your body cramps up after sitting all day? Theirs didn't. They got natural pressure point stimulation just from walking over uneven ground roots, rocks, slopes. It was like a full-body massage built into their commute. Modern sleepers spend hundreds on special mattresses to mimic this effect. The difference shows up in brain scans. Nomadic groups today get more REM sleep than office workers. That's the stage where your brain processes emotions and memories. How? Because their days involved real physical work, natural light changes, and no screens messing with their heads. We've turned sleep into a problem to solve, but for them, it was just what happened when daylight faded. Fire did more than provide warmth. That flickering light was nature's sleep aid. Researchers now know firelight's specific orange glow helps trigger melatonin production better than bulbs. Groups would wind down as flames died, their brains getting the signal to rest. We stare at blue-lit phones until bed, and wonder why sleep doesn't come easy. Fresh air wasn't a luxury, it was constant. Their lungs got steady oxygen all day from being outside, not recirculated office air. Breathing better meant sleeping better. Even their skin benefited from temperature changes we never feel in climate-controlled homes. Your body expects to cool down at night, but modern bedrooms stay one steady temperature. Group sleeping changed everything. You've had that moment lying awake alone at night, hearing nothing but your thoughts. They rarely did. The sounds of others breathing nearby signaled safety to their brains. Studies show even today, people sleep better with someone in the room. It triggers ancient wiring that says all's well. We've traded that for solitary bedrooms and sleep trackers. Dreams probably felt different too. After days spent tracking animals and reading landscapes, their sleep likely wove those experiences into stories. Modern dreams full of work stress, theirs may have rehearsed the next day's hunt or reinforced berry-picking routes. Even asleep, their minds worked with their environment, not against it. The rhythm was seamless. No harsh divisions between work time and sleep time, just gradual transitions. After sunset storytelling by the fire, eyelids would grow heavy naturally, no forcing it. Dawn came, and their bodies rose with light because no blackout curtains blocked it. Naps happened when tired, not just when schedules allowed. Seasonal changes helped too. Longer nights in winter meant more sleep. Summer's heat led to midday rests in shade. Their bodies followed nature's lead rather than fighting it. We pushed through seasons with coffee and a sea, ignoring these signals that still live in our DNA. Their bedding did more than cushion. Grass mats allowed airflow under them, regulating temperature. Animal hides blocked ground dampness without trapping. Heat. Everything had purpose no memory foam needed. Modern sleep products try to recreate these features at markup prices. The sounds around them helped. Wind in leaves, distant animal calls nature's white noise machine. No sudden car, alarms or buzzing phones. Even storms were familiar rhythms, not sleep disruptors. Your brain still relaxes to these sounds, which is why rain videos get millions of sleepy time views. Body positioning mattered. They likely shifted often, without stiff mattresses locking them in place. Fetal position in cool weather, sprawled. In heat, no correct posture, just what felt right. Modern sleep ergonomics could learn from this instinctive approach. Deeper sleep had real benefits. More time in REM meant better problem solving and emotional control. Nightmares may have been less frequent without modern stresses. Their sleep wasn't perfect. Everyone has rough nights, but it worked with their biology rather than against. Morning came differently too. No jolting alarms, just gradual light and birdsong. Their bodies woke when rested, not when schedules demanded. Ever notice how much better you feel sleeping in a tent? That's your body remembering how it's meant to work. The payoff wasn't just rest, it was integration. Sleep wasn't a separate state, but part of a continuous flow. From walking to working to storytelling to sleeping, every phase supported the others. We fractured that cycle into disconnected chunks, then wonder why the pieces don't fit. Now consider how differently we view movement today. They walked because that's what humans do. We see it as exercise or transportation. This shift in mindset explains a lot about why sleep feels harder now. But that's a story for the next section. We've got it all backwards. Modern life treats movement like something to schedule 30 minutes on a treadmill, a weekend hike if we're feeling ambitious. Early humans would have found this baffling. Walking wasn't exercise to them. It was just how you existed, like breathing in and out. They didn't go for walks because every waking moment involved moving through landscapes. You didn't need a step counter when your whole life was steps. Think about how differently we view travel now. For us, it's displacement, a disruption from our real lives centered in homes and offices. For them, movement was the default state. Migrations weren't stressful events. They were as natural as leaves falling in autumn. Modern anthropologists note how contemporary nomadic groups describe moving seasons with the same nonchalance we reserve for describing lunch plans. No packing anxiety, no countdowns, just the steady rhythm of following resources wherever they LED? Here's the irony. Our attempts to root ourselves might be causing half our problems. Studies show walking meditation reduces anxiety more than seated versions. Why? Because it echoes what our bodies evolved to do: move while processing the world. You can feel it when you're stuck indoors too long. That restless leg bounce? That's ancient wiring begging to be used as intended. Early humans didn't need meditation apps because their daily movement naturally created mindful states we now struggle to achieve even on retreats. Their lifestyle enforced a kind of healthy detachment we've lost. Leaving campsites behind meant no room for clutter, physical or mental. Every march required leaving behind fire pits, worn tools, sometimes even burial sites. This constant practice of letting go built resilience against the ruminations that keep modern people awake at night. You couldn't lie there regretting yesterday's mistakes when tomorrow's campsite would be completely new terrain. Impermanence wasn't philosophy. It was breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Watch any nature documentary showing animal migrations. There's no existential crisis. When caribou abandon grazing grounds, they just move. Early humans operated on similar instincts. Modern psychology calls this non-attachment and sells courses to teach it. They absorbed it through blistered feet and calloused hands. The land didn't belong to them. They belonged to its rhythms. Ownership wasn't about deeds, but about knowing places intimately until it was time to know new ones. Sleep medications didn't exist because they weren't needed. Constant movement handled it naturally. Think about how a toddler crashes after a day at the playground. That exhaustion isn't accidental. Early humans maintained that same physiological honesty. Distance walked translated directly into sleep depth. No tired but wired nights, because their nervous systems stayed perfectly calibrated between exertion and recovery. Modern gym goers might recognize the effect after an unusually active day when sleep comes easier. That's the ghost of our ancestral patterns tapping you on the shoulder. Examine their decision-making. Choices were immediate and practical. Where's good for tonight? Not, what's my 5-year real estate plan? Problems got solved while walking literally. Stanford research confirms what indigenous cultures knew. Walking boosts creative problem solving by 60% compared to sitting. Early humans didn't schedule brainstorming meetings. They walked and talked, letting movement unlock ideas we now chase with sticky notes and whiteboards. Remember that restless feeling during lockdowns when you paced your home? That wasn't just boredom. It was your body remembering it's designed to cover ground daily. Prison systems know this instinct well. They use restricted movement as psychological punishment. Yet we voluntarily cage ourselves in cubicles and wonder why we're antsy. Early humans would find our concept of being good at sitting still as bizarre as we find their lack of chairs. The contrast shows up in child rearing too. Modern parents panic if kids can't sit through 6 hours of school. Early humans would have panicked if kids couldn't walk 10 miles. Different priorities breed different problems. Their children developed spatial memory that puts today's GPS-addicted adults to shame. Yours can recite Pokemon stats. Theirs could identify 30 useful plants before age 7. Both represent what cultures choose to prioritize. This philosophy affected even tool design. Artifacts show gradual improvements over millennia, not sudden reinventions. Why? Because thoughts got refined while walking the same routes year after year. Ideas had time to simmer as feet covered familiar ground. Compare that to Silicon Valley's iterate fast and break things approach that leaves everyone exhausted. Their version of progress moved at the speed of seasons, not software updates. Perhaps most revealing is how they viewed exhaustion. Modern workers push through fatigue with caffeine, then collapse. Early humans respected natural energy ebbs. If the group flagged, they stopped, no guilt, no powering through. Rest wasn't failure. It was part of the rhythm. Anthropologists observing modern hunter-gatherers note they rarely push to complete exhaustion like desk workers do before weekend crashes. The payoff was a mind-body connection we fractured. Movement wasn't something they thought about, it was how they thought. Literally. Neurological research suggests walking synchronizes brain hemispheres better than sitting. Their stories, decisions, even dreams likely flowed differently thanks to this constant motion. We've disconnected movement from cognition and wonder why we feel scattered. Now consider your own life. How often do you move without purpose? Not to reach a destination or burn calories, but just because it feels right? That itch to wander isn't a flaw. It's millions of years of evolution, whispering that stillness is the aberration, not the other way around. The good news? You don't need to become a nomad to tap into this. Small changes can reconnect you with these rhythms. But that's a path for the next section. You don't need to ditch your mattress and hit the trail to tap into ancient sleep wisdom. Start simple tonight. Before bed, imagine packing a small bundle for tomorrow's journey. Not a suitcase, just what you'd carry in your hands. A water pouch, maybe a piece of fruit. The mental exercise forces you to prioritize what actually matters, cutting through modern clutter. Studies show this visualization activates the same brain regions as physical packing, priming your mind for rest. Match your breathing to a walking rhythm, about 60 breaths per minute. That's the pace early humans moved at, and it happens. To sync with our resting heart rate, you're not meditating. You're recreating the cadence of ancestral travel. Count it out. Inhale for 4 steps, exhale for 4. Your nervous system still recognizes this pattern, even if you're lying. Still, it's why rocking babies works. We're wired to respond to rhythmic movement. Picture yourself moving through a landscape, but not like some guided meditation. No waterfalls or spirit animals. Just mundane details. The way grass bends underfoot, how afternoon light slants through trees. Early humans noticed these things automatically. The key is observation without analysis, seeing without assigning meaning. Modern brain scans prove this. Visualization lights up motor cortex areas just like actual walking does. Your body doesn't know you're faking it. If your mind races, try trailing an imaginary animal. Follow geese flying north or a fox trotting along a ridge. Animal movements have purpose, but no hurry. They pause to sniff the air, change course. When the ground feels wrong, mirror that rhythm in your thoughts. Anthropologists note modern hunter-gatherers still use this technique to calm anxious children. Your brain's ancient wiring responds the same way. Let thoughts pass like landmarks. On a trail, a worrying thought appears. That's just the lightning-struck oak from mile 3. A memory surfaces. There's the creek crossing where the group rested. Don't engage or push away. Early humans didn't have that luxury. They acknowledged distractions and kept walking. Modern sleep researchers call this cognitive diffusion, but it's really just how minds work when bodies move. Adjust your bedroom to mimic nomadic camps. Set the thermostat lower. Early humans slept in tone. around 60 degrees Fahrenheit, not our stuffy 72. Use a flickering nightlight or candle, safely contained, to approximate firelight's wavelength. Studies confirm this orange-red glow triggers melatonin better than white light. You're not decorating a wilderness retreat, just nudging your environment closer to what your biology expects. Try a pre-sleep walk, even just around your block. Don't check your step count or listen to podcasts. Notice how your body naturally settles into a rhythm somewhere between 2 to 3 miles per hour. That's your ancestral pace emerging. Pay attention to sensory details. They'd have relied on the direction of the breeze, changes in pavement texture underfoot. 10 minutes is enough. You're not training for a marathon, just reminding your nervous system how it's meant to transition to rest. Recreate the storytelling effect with audiobooks. Pick something with a steady narrator, no dramatic voices or sound effects. Play it softly while you drift off, letting the words flow like elder tales around a fire. Research shows speech at 60 words per minute induces theta brainwaves, a twilight state before sleep. Your great-great-grandparents didn't need noise machines because human voices were their white noise. Practice non-attachment as you fall asleep. Early humans left campsites without looking back. Try mentally releasing today's worries the same way. Imagine placing each concern in a cache along your path, knowing you could retrieve it tomorrow, if needed. Psychology studies find this technique reduces nighttime rumination better than journaling. It tricks your brain into thinking problems are safely stored elsewhere. Use your bedding like they used hides. Ditch the heavy comforter. For lighter layers, you can adjust as you cool down. Early humans slept under furs that breathed better than modern polyester fills. If you overheat at 3 a.m., that's your inner nomad saying, move the covers, not a sleep disorder. Your body still expects temperature fluctuations we've air-conditioned out of existence. Try the waypoint method if you wake at night. Instead of stressing about hours lost, imagine you're pausing on a moonlit trail. Early humans didn't sleep in uninterrupted blocks. They dozed lightly when predators might approach. Your midnight alertness might be old programming, not insomnia. Breathe slowly, picture stars overhead, and let rest come when it will. The payoff isn't perfect sleep, it's perspective. You're not failing at modern rest. You're succeeding at an ancient rhythm modern life ignores. When sleep feels elusive tonight, remember, your body isn't broken. It's waiting for signals it still recognizes, buried under layers of artificial light and schedules. Give it those cues, even in small ways, and watch how naturally rest follows. Now let's see what science says about why these tricks work. Turns out, your brain's wiring hasn't changed as much as your environment has. Those geese you imagined following? They're more than just mental distractions. They tap into neural pathways we've been polishing for millennia. Modern science confirms what early humans knew: instinctively rhythmic living wires us for better sleep. Studies show something fascinating. The bilateral stimulation from walking helps process emotions, much like EMDR therapy treats anxiety. This explains why you often solve problems while pacing. Your brain literally works differently when your body moves, smoothing out the mental wrinkles that keep us awake. Early humans got this therapy built into their daily commutes. That storytelling pace, about 60 beats per minute, wasn't random. It matches our resting heart rate. Researchers now see this rhythm triggers theta brainwaves, the same state. Between waking and sleep, your pulse slows to meet the cadence, pulling you into calmness. Like how lullabies work on babies, these ancient tales tapped into biology we're only now understanding. Rest wasn't something they chased. It was the natural result of living at the right tempo. Your body still expects movement we've engineered out of modern life. Early humans didn't sit for hours then wonder why their backs hurt. Constant low-level activity, walking, bending, carrying kept muscles loose. Today's stiffness comes from unnatural stillness. Studies of modern hunter-gatherers show they rarely experience the muscle tension that disrupts urban sleepers' nights. Their version of ergonomics was simply using their bodies as intended. Varied sensory input made their sleep deeper too. Unlike office workers staring at screens, early humans' days involved changing textures underfoot, shifting wind patterns, new smells and sights. This sensory richness gave brains plenty to process, leading to robust sleep cycles. Modern environments often lack this stimulation. Same chair, same view, same artificial lighting. No wonder sleep suffers when our waking hours are sensory desserts. Anthropologists note nomadic groups report less insomnia than industrial societies. Their secret? They never fought circadian rhythms. Light dictated their schedules rising, with dawn resting at dusk. Modern life overrides these cues with artificial light and rigid work hours. Your body still expects natural light variations we've replaced with constant indoor lighting. The mismatch explains why sleep hygiene often fails when treating symptoms instead of the root problem. The Industrial Revolution changed everything. Before, sleep patterns adapted to seasons-longer rests in winter, short naps in summer heat. Then factories demanded 8-hour blocks. Research shows medieval Europeans practiced segmented sleep, awake periods at night for reading or intimacy, before returning to rest. Some cultures still maintain this pattern. Your insomnia might actually be your body remembering older rhythms that don't fit modern schedules. EMDR therapy's eye movements share something with ancient walking. Both use bilateral stimulation to reprocess memories. Early humans didn't need therapists because daily movement provided similar benefits naturally. Pacing while working through problems likely helped them emotionally reset. Free therapy with every journey. Modern sedentary lifestyles remove this outlet, trapping stressful thoughts that surface at night. Temperature regulation played a bigger role than we realized. Early humans slept in cooling evening air and under insulating hides as temperatures dropped. This natural temperature curve warm to cool to warm signaled sleep stages perfectly. Modern climate control eliminates these cues. Your thermostat, staying at 72 degrees Fahrenheit all night, confuses your biology expecting natural fluctuations. Dream research reveals another clue. Early humans' dreams likely incorporated daily landscapes replaying routes, reinforcing survival skills. Modern dreams full of work stress? That's your brain processing artificial environments instead of natural ones. Studies suggest nomadic groups' dreams focus more on physical spaces and abstract worries. Different inputs create different. Nighttime processing. Social sleeping changed brain chemistry too. The subtle sounds of others breathing nearby release oxytocin, lowering stress hormones. Solitary sleeping is evolutionarily new. Our bodies still expect communal rest. Pets crawling into bed with owners might tap into this ancient wiring. That's why people sleep better with partners, despite the disturbances. The safety signal outweighs the noise. Physical contact mattered more than we thought. Early humans slept touching family members, a practice reducing cortisol levels. Touch releases serotonin, the precursor to melatonin. Modern isolated sleep lacks these chemical cues. Weighted. Blankets attempt to recreate this effect artificially, proving how deeply we're still wired for contact. The industrial era's artificial schedules created new sleep disorders. Early humans adjusted rhythms seasonally. No jet lag from time zones. No daylight savings confusion. Their version of sleep training was simply living outdoors. Modern research shows camping resets circadian clocks in just 48 hours. Proof of how quickly we can return to older patterns when removed from artificial light. Muscle recovery happened differently too. Constant movement prevented the stiff shoulders and sore backs that plagued desk workers. Early humans varied physical activity, provided natural myofascial release, no foam rollers needed. Their version of exercise was just daily living at human scale, something gyms try to replicate in fractured 1-hour sessions. The science is clear. We sleep best living closer to how we evolved. Not identical. No one's suggesting cave dwellings, but honoring basic biological needs modern life ignores. Your insomnia isn't personal failure. It's cultural mismatch. Small changes can bridge this gap without abandoning modernity. Start tonight by syncing your routine more closely with those ancient rhythms still pulsing in your DNA. Early humans didn't just walk differently, they thought differently. Their mobile lifestyle rewired their brains in ways we've since forgotten. Without permanent homes, they developed a kind of mental flexibility that modern life beats out of. U.S. Imagine not stressing about mortgage payments or cluttered garages because you never owned enough to fill one. That was their daily reality. Decisions were simpler too. Not where should I retire, but where looks good for tonight. This present-focused thinking left little room for the anxieties that keep us awake. Walking wasn't just transportation for them. It was how they solved problems. Studies show walking boosts creative thinking by 60% compared to sitting. Early humans had this advantage built into their days. Arguments got worked out while moving. New ideas surfaced during the morning trek. Your best shower thoughts today? They had those all day long, with better scenery. Their version of a brainstorming meeting was just walking side by side, letting the rhythm of footsteps unlock solutions. Their minds operated in what neuroscientists now call the default mode network, that daydreamy state between focus and sleep. Modern people rarely access it outside showers or long drives. Early humans lived in it constantly while walking. This mental space isn't zoning out. It's where creativity and memory processing happen. Your phone addiction has practically shut down this system, while their lifestyle kept it humming all day. Material detachment came naturally to them. Modern minimalists struggle to declutter. Early humans just didn't accumulate. Kids carried tiny bundles, a sharpened stick, maybe a favorite stone. Adults owned slightly more, but nothing that couldn't be left behind. This wasn't deprivation, it was freedom. Imagine sleeping without mentally cataloging your possessions. No wondering if you left the stove on because there was no stove. Their security came from skills and community, not stuff. This mindset affected time perception too. They experienced what psychologists call event time rather than clock time. Days flowed by activities, not hours. Later might mean after eating or when the rain stopped. Without artificial schedules, there was no stress about running late. Your body still tries to work this way. That feeling that an hour drags or flies. That's your brain fighting clock time, which we've only used for about 200 of our 300,000 years as humans. Flexibility became second nature. Changing course for weather or game movements wasn't frustrating, just practical. Modern people get bent out of shape when Google Maps reroutes us. Their ability to pivot puts our rigidity to shame. Dig show campsites abandoned mid-meal when conditions changed. No agonizing over sunk costs, just prompt adaptation. This mental agility likely reduced nighttime rumination over should-haves. They practiced mindfulness without trying. Constant environmental awareness kept them grounded in the present. Unlike our fractured attention spans, bears stayed gently engaged, noticing edible plants while walking, listening for predators while chatting. We pay therapists to teach us this skill. They maintained effortlessly. Modern mindfulness is just an attempt to reclaim what their lifestyle provided naturally. Problem solving looked different too. Without writing, they relied on memory techniques we've lost. Turns in trails became story triggers. Rock formations acted as visual reminders. This enmeshed thinking with landscapes created cognitive scaffolding. We've replaced with sticky notes and apps. The trade-off? Their memories worked better while walking. Yours probably does too, if you've ever gotten ideas pacing. Sleep came easier because their waking hours flowed properly. Decisions got made, problems solved, movements processed all before bedtime. Modern life leaves this mental work unfinished, so your brain tries to do it while you sleep. Their nights were for rest, not processing unexamined thoughts from sedentary days. That unfinished feeling when you can't sleep, that's your brain asking why you sat all day instead of working things out properly. Risk assessment was more accurate too. Constant environmental interaction calibrated their danger meters precisely. Modern people either ignore real risks or panic over trivial ones. Early humans worried appropriately, cautious about predators, relaxed about most else. This balance likely made their nights more peaceful than ours, despite actual environmental dangers we never face. Social bonds form differently without permanent settlements. Relationships weren't optional when survival depended on cooperation. Modern loneliness epidemics stem partly from having to seek what was once unavoidable. Their version of social media was face-to-face storytelling, with algorithms replaced by elders who knew exactly which tales you needed to hear. This mental approach wasn't mystical, just practical adaptation. Thousands of years later, your brain still expects many of these patterns. That antsy feeling when sitting too long, the way ideas flow better while walking, these aren't quirks. They're reminders of how we're meant to operate. The mobile mindset lives on in you, buried under layers of modern habits that fight your biology every day. Now consider who guided this flexible thinking. Not self-help gurus, but elders who'd walked thousands of miles. Their role wasn't just to remember the way, but to set the pace and tone for everyone else. While modern society often sidelines older people, early communities placed them right where they could do the most good. At the center of daily life, where all decisions flowed through their hard-won wisdom. Early humans didn't push their elders to the back of the group. They put them right where they mattered most. These weren't slow members to tolerate, but walking libraries who set the entire group's pace. Picture this, the eldest leading at 2 miles per hour, forcing everyone else to slow down and observe. That deliberate speed wasn't a limitation. It was a survival strategy. Kids got front row seats to an education modern universities can't replicate, learning through overheard stories and Real-time environmental readings. Archaeologists keep finding proof of how valued elders were. Skeletons show healed fractures in older individuals, broken legs that mended, head wounds that recovered. These injuries would have been fatal without community care. Someone carried them, fed them, changed their dressings for months. That's how essential their knowledge was, worth preserving at all costs. Modern nursing homes might call this burden. Early humans called it investing in next winter's survival guide. The pace served practical purposes too. Moving slower meant spotting edible plants younger eyes might miss. It allowed time to point out animal signs and weather changes. Ever notice how grandparents today still catch things you overlook? That's generations of selective pressure favoring those observational skills. Nomadic groups didn't have field guides. Their walking elders were the Wikipedia everyone consulted daily. Modern studies of remaining nomadic peoples show something striking. Their 70-year-olds out like our gym members. Constant gentle movement preserves joints better than sedentary living, followed by bursts of exercise. These elders don't retire. They transition to lighter loads, but keep contributing. The Hadza people of Tanzania show less cognitive decline than Americans, precisely because their lifestyle keeps both body and mind engaged. Rest breaks naturally followed this pace. When elders needed to stop, everyone did. These weren't delays, but scheduled observations. Kids learned more in these pauses than in hours of forced marching. That flattened log became a lesson on fungi. That odd rock formation sparked creation myths. Modern hikers speed past such details, but early humans immersed in them because elders created the space to notice. Sleep patterns benefited too. Elders. Circadian rhythms tend to shift earlier with age. They naturally rise at dawn and want rest at dusk. This created built-in sleep cues for the whole group. Your smartwatch's bedtime reminder? They had living, breathing versions who actually knew when storms were coming. The entire community sensed to biological rhythms rather than fighting them. Knowledge transfer happened constantly, without formal lessons. Elders didn't quiz kids on plant identification. They'd casually mention uses for nearby routes while walking. Stories flowed naturally from landmarks past. This continuous low-pressure teaching beat classroom drills for retention. Modern education. Studies confirm we learn best through contextual repetition. Exactly how nomadic kids absorbed survival skills over thousands of miles walked together. The system had built-in quality control too. Elders' knowledge wasn't theoretical. It had kept them alive for decades. When they said, "Don't camp there," everyone listened because they'd seen flash floods fill that gully. Contrast that with today's online misinformation. Their Wikipedia had skin in the game, quite literally. Physical limitations became teaching. Opportunities. An elder with arthritis might ride on a travois while pointing out edible plants along the trail. Mobility aids weren't hidden, but incorporated into daily life. This normalized aging in ways our youth-obsessed culture misses. Kids saw that growing older meant transitioning roles, not becoming irrelevant. The intergenerational contact shaped sleep itself. Multiple studies show grandmother's presence improves grandkids' sleep quality, probably some ancient evolutionary hangover of communal safety. Elders' rhythmic snoring may have even served as sleep cues, like nature's white noise. Machine. Their mere presence signaled all's well to primal brain regions still scanning for threats. Material culture reflected this respect too. Archaeologists find older individuals buried with the same tools as adults in their prime. No discarding people when they slowed down. Some graves show elders clutching teaching aids like carved animal figures. These weren't just personal effects, but teaching tools for the next generation, the ultimate lesson plans. Modern life inverted this system. We value speed over wisdom, novelty over experience, but our biology still responds to those older rhythms. Notice how kids calm around patient grandparents, how stories land differently from elders. That's million-year-old programming, whispering that sometimes the fastest way forward is to slow down and follow those who've walked the path before. Now think about modern sleep struggles. We dose ourselves with melatonin while ignoring our body's natural sleep signals. Early humans had walking, talking melatonin factories, elders whose very presence regulated group rest. Your insomnia might just be your body missing those time-tested rhythms we've foolishly abandoned. Next time you're rushing somewhere, try this. Imagine an elder setting your pace. Notice how much more you see at 2 miles per hour than at your normal clip. That's the sensory world we traded for productivity, one we're about to unpack in detail. Early humans experienced the world through senses we've mostly switched off. They could literally taste water in the air before seeing it, detecting subtle humidity changes that signaled springs or streams. Modern hikers carry GPS and water filters. Their ancestors just licked the breeze and knew where to dig. The ground underfoot told stories too. Different grasses gave clues through their texture. Stiff bunches meant dry soil, while softer patches indicated moisture and potential tubers. Below, each step provided data we now need soil tests to uncover. Bird calls functioned as weather apps with wings. Certain songs signaled storms hours before clouds appeared. A particular trill might mean rain by afternoon, while abrupt silence often warned of predators nearby. Modern meteorologists need radar to predict what they read in avian behavior. These weren't special powers, just generations of listening carefully to what's now background noise. Your phone's weather alert does the same thing, just with less charm. The nose worked overtime in their world. Where you might smell outside, they detected layers. Ripe blackberries 200 yards east. A rotting log hosting edible grubs. The musky hint of deer passing through. Studies suggest modern humans use about 30% of our olfactory capacity. Ours are the equivalent of black and white TVs compared to their high-def sniffers. Certain winds acted as natural road signs. Pine before mountains, salt before oceans, smoke before camps. GPS gives directions, but smells provided context they used to build detailed mental maps. Touch wasn't just about texture, but information. Running fingers along bark revealed which trees held beehives. The way moss grew on rocks pointed to water sources. Evening air's cooling rate helped estimate how far they could travel before dark. Modern hands spend more time tapping screens than reading landscapes. That callus on your thumb from texting? Theirs came from feeling out edible roots in soil. This sensory richness had an unexpected benefit. It prevented rumination. When your brain processes constant environmental input, there's less bandwidth for anxious thoughts. Modern life creates the opposite problem. Office workers stare at the same screens in the same chairs under the same lights. Small wonder sleep suffers when days lack the sensory variation our brains evolved expecting. Studies confirm sensory deprivation contributes to insomnia. Your mind keeps searching for the stimuli it's missing. Nighttime amplified these senses. Without light pollution, stars provided more than navigation. Their brightness indicated humidity levels. Wind direction carried sounds differently after dark, making ears more crucial than eyes. The temperature drop on bare skin helped estimate time until dawn. Modern campers get glimpses of this during power outages, when suddenly noticing how much information darkness actually holds. Children learn these skills through games and stories. Spotting animal tracks trained visual acuity. Scent identification contests sharpened noses. Even today, hunter-gatherer kids outperform Western adults on these tasks without trying. It's not that their senses are better, just better used. Like unused muscles, neglected senses atrophy. Your Wi-Fi signal is strong, but could you smell water? The body itself became a sensing device. The ache in joints predicted rain long before clouds formed. Hunger pangs timed perfectly with when certain fruits would be ripe. Even bathroom needs sensed with optimal foraging times. Modern life overrides these signals with artificial schedules and snacks. Your smartwatch counts steps while ignoring the million-year-old biofeedback system in your bones. Sleep environments benefited from this sensory awareness too. They chose campsites not just for shelter, but for soundscapes, the rustle of certain leaves provided better white noise than others. The way rocks retained heat informed sleeping spot selection. Modern sleep hygiene struggles because it ignores these factors. Your mattress might be expensive, but does it account for the direction of morning sunlight like their hide beds did? This sensory engagement created natural tiredness. Modern gyms try to replicate it with virtual reality workouts, but can't. Match gathering food all day while navigating by smell and sound. The difference between lifting weights and proper foraging? About 10,000 years of evolutionary conditioning. Your Peloton can't compete with miles walked tracking game across changing terrain. The payoff was seamless sleep. Their days provided exactly the sensory input human brains evolved to process. Varied but rhythmic. Engaging but not overwhelming. No sleep apps or weighted blankets needed. Just minds thoroughly used by day, ready to reset by night. Industrial life hasn't changed our biology. Just remove the conditions it needs to function properly. You don't have insomnia. You have sensory deprivation. Now imagine applying even fractions of this today. Eating without screens to focus on flavors. Walking without headphones to hear subtle cues. sleeping with windows open to catch dawn's first light. Small reconnections make a difference. Your senses haven't disappeared, just gotten buried under layers of convenience. Dig them up occasionally and notice how sleep improves when your brain finally gets the stimulation it's been craving. Early humans didn't sleep alone. They slept together, and that made all the difference. Their groups functioned like interconnected sleep systems where everyone played a role. Someone always kept watch at night, which meant the rest could actually relax. Imagine dozing off knowing trained eyes scanned the darkness for threats. No staring at the ceiling, worrying about noises. That job belonged to the designated night watcher. This simple division of labor created psychological safety we've lost in our isolated bedrooms. Body heat worked better than any thermostat. 15 people sleeping in a hide shelter created natural insulation. Their combined warmth made minus temperatures survivable. Kids burrowed between adults like living hot water bottles. Modern weighted blankets try to recreate this pressure and warmth, but they're poor substitutes for actual human contact. Studies of modern communal sleepers show their body temperatures synchronize throughout the night, creating thermal harmony, no electric. Blanket can match. Babies didn't ruin anyone's sleep schedule because everyone shared the load. A crying infant might get passed to an aunt already awake, or soothed by a grandmother's familiar voice. Parents today bear the full brunt of nighttime disruptions, but early humans spread the fatigue across the group. This communal approach explains why hunter-gatherer mothers report less stress than modern ones, despite higher childbirth rates. The phrase, "it takes a village," applied literally to nighttime parenting. Their circadian rhythms synced like perfectly. Tuned clocks. Without alarms forcing wake-up times, group members naturally aligned their sleep cycles through shared light exposure and body cues. Modern sleep studies confirm this phenomenon. Roommates gradually adopt similar sleep rhythms. Even without trying, early humans amplified this effect through constant proximity. Your body still craves this synchronization, which is why you sleep better next to a predictable partner. Walking conversations prevented nighttime overthinking. Problems got discussed during daylight movement, not rehashed in bed. The side-by-side format of these talks reduced confrontation compared to face-to-face modern arguments. You know that tense feeling when you argue in cars? Their version was more productive, walking shoulder to shoulder while working issues out. Unfinished business didn't haunt their nights because daylight hours provided natural resolution. Windows. The journey itself was their daily therapy session. Modern commuters stew in traffic jams or cram into subways, but early humans traveled through open spaces with trusted companions. Their version of rush hour involved passing knowledge across generations while covering ground. Compare that to your last gridlocked drive home, and you'll understand why modern sleep comes with more baggage. We've swapped community for chemistry. When it comes to sleep aids, pills and podcasts replace what human connection once provided. Naturally, sleeping alone with earbuds blasting rain sounds would seem bizarre to early humans. Why simulate companionship when actual people were always within arm's reach? The rise of sleep medication correlates neatly with the decline of shared sleeping spaces. Shared nights affected daytime energy too. Modern offices full of sleep-deprived workers would baffle early humans. Their groups moved together seamlessly because everyone rested on the same schedule. Decisions made with well-rested minds carried the group further than groggy. Modern choices that require 4 coffees to execute. The nighttime sentry system offered unexpected psychological benefits beyond safety. Knowing someone kept watch allowed for truly deep sleep cycles. Your modern brain still monitors for threats while you sleep. That's why unfamiliar hotel rooms disrupt rest. Early humans could power down completely because the community's vigilance system covered overnight. Security. Temperature regulation worked better in groups too. Your AC battles the summer heat alone, but early humans used each other's bodies as climate control. People naturally shifted positions throughout the night, creating airflow while maintaining warmth. The elderly got placed in optimal spots, warm but not stuffy. Kids rotated from parent to parent as needed. Modern sleep products attempt to replicate this dynamic with cooling gel pads and heated mattress toppers. The communal approach even improved. Dream content. Shared experiences during the day led to more positive dream imagery at night. Modern isolation often breeds stressful dreams about work or social faux pas. Their dreams likely rehearsed skills or processed group dynamics, more useful than your recurring nightmare about showing up to an exam unprepared. Conflict resolution happened faster in this system too. Lingering resentments got addressed quickly because no one could storm off to separate bedrooms. Sleeping shoulder to shoulder. Forced compromise and forgiveness. You can't give someone the silent treatment when you'll be sharing a hide blanket in a few hours. Modern couples therapists might recommend trying it. The sounds of communal sleeping acted as natural white noise. Modern sleep machines play recordings of waves or rainforests, but early humans had something better, the steady breathing patterns of people they trusted. Research shows even strangers' breathing rates synchronize when sleeping nearby. Your AirPods playing ocean sounds are attempting to recreate what your ancestors got for free. Insomnia carried social consequences that motivated sleep hygiene. In tight-knit groups, keeping everyone awake came with real social costs. Modern sleep disorders flourish because our individualistic approach lacks these built-in accountability systems. No nomadic elder would tolerate your 3 a.m. TikTok scrolling disrupting the group's rest. The payoff wasn't just better sleep, it was stronger social bonds. Shared vulnerability at night deepened daytime connections. Your modern sleep tracker might give you data, but early humans got something more valuable, knowing someone would notice if they didn't show up for breakfast. That simple certainty probably did more for sleep quality than any mattress commercial promises. Now, let's examine what else they gained from this transient lifestyle beyond sleep benefits. The constant leaving behind of places and possessions shaped minds in ways permanent addresses can't replicate. Turns out there's value in keeping everything you own light enough to carry, and not just for your back muscles. Early humans lived with a kind of lightness we can barely imagine today. They didn't have attics full of childhood toys or garages stuffed with unused exercise equipment. Their entire lives fit in their arms, or on their backs. This wasn't deprivation. It was freedom. Imagine never lying awake worrying about your mortgage or whether you left the stove on. Their biggest possession concern was whether they could carry it tomorrow. Archaeologists see this play out in the layers they uncover. Dig sites show brief stays, a season here, a few months there. Like turning pages in a book, they'd pack up and move without agonizing over what to leave behind. Their version of spring cleaning happened every migration. Unlike your cluttered garage that stresses you out every time you open it, their space was always exactly what they needed. No more, no less. This constant movement created mental space too. Without souvenirs to dust or family heirlooms to protect, their minds stayed focused on the present. Modern studies show clutter spikes cortisol levels. That's the stress hormone that keeps you awake at night. Early humans had naturally lower cortisol because their lifestyle prevented accumulation. Your midnight brain racing through to-do lists about organizing the basement? That was alien to them. Kids learned this lightness early. A child's prized possession might be a smooth stone or carved bone, things that actually fit in small hands. They didn't have rooms full of plastic toys to trip over or organize. Modern parents know that panicky feeling when stepping on Legos in the dark. Early humans avoided that particular misery by never accumulating enough to become hazards. Their tools show the same philosophy. Archaeologists find artifacts used until they were smooth from handling and repurposed when worn out. A spear tip becomes a scraper, becomes a pendant. Nothing got hoarded, just in case. Compare that to your kitchen drawer full of single-use gadgets you've touched twice. Modern minimalists get praised for this approach, but they're just rediscovering. Ancient common sense. Sleep benefited directly from this mindset. Without stuff anxiety, nighttime mental chatter decreased. No stressing about whether you locked the storage unit or when to rotate seasonal clothes. Their winter gear didn't get stored. It got worn until warm weather returned, then traded or discarded. Simple. Modern sleep therapists should take notes. Decluttering might be more effective than meditation apps. Seasonal moves enforced this simplicity. You couldn't haul unnecessary items across mountains, so attachment faded quickly. That weird vase your aunt gave you? Left at last summer's campsite without guilt. Modern life traps us in cycles of acquisition and regret. Early humans escaped. This by making impermanence their default. Their version of, does this spark joy? Was, can I carry this uphill tomorrow? Even their homes reflected this. Shelters built from branches and hides could be abandoned without sadness. No 30-year mortgage or property taxes. When the group moved, structures stayed behind to return to earth naturally. Compare that to modern renovation stress and homeowner association battles. Their housing anxiety began and ended with, will this spot flood if it rains? The mental impact was profound. Constant movement meant constant resets. Bad hunting day. Tomorrow's a new location. Argument with a group member. Miles of walking. To work it out. Modern people stew in their frustrations, lying awake, replaying conflicts. Early humans literally walked away from troubles, both physically and mentally. Modern science backs this up. Clutter studies show messy environments increase anxiety and decrease focus. MRI scans reveal chaotic spaces overload our visual cortex. Early humans avoided this simply by owning less than their environment could support. Your fight with your sock drawer is uniquely modern. There's an irony here. We've built entire industries around storage solutions for things we rarely use, while early humans had the ultimate minimalist lifestyle baked into survival. That pang you feel when donating unused items? Their brains never developed that reflex because accumulation wasn't an option. Freedom came from having little to lose. Sleep specialists are catching on. Some now prescribe clutter fasts before bedtime, clearing visible mess to calm the mind. Early humans didn't need this hack because their lives were constant clutter fasts. Your great-great-grandparents would laugh at the idea of tidying up as revolutionary. They knew the secret all along. Own little, sleep deeply. The payoff wasn't just less stuff. It was more attention for what mattered. Without distraction of maintenance, minds could focus on relationships, skills, and stories. Modern minimalists report similar clarity when shedding possessions. That peaceful feeling after donating bags of clothes? Early humans lived in that. Headspace constantly. Now, contrast this with your last sleepless night. How much mental energy went to unpaid bills, unfinished projects, or that weird noise the car started making? Early humans traded those worries for simpler concerns. Where to find water tomorrow, which plants were ripening. Their problems were immediate and solvable, the kind that don't haunt your dreams. This likeness extended to social bonds too. Without material gifts, relationships thrived on shared experiences and knowledge. A well-told story mattered more than any birthday present. Modern couples fight over household chores. Early humans just moved on before dust accumulated. There's wisdom in that. Your ancestors developed this mindset over millennia. It's still in you somewhere, buried under layers of modern consumer habits. When you feel overwhelmed by your possessions, that's ancient wiring asking, why are we carrying all this? The answer might be the key to better sleep than any mattress could provide. Next time you're lying awake, try this. Imagine the weight of everything you own. Not just physical items, but the mental upkeep they require. Then picture dropping it, all except what you'd carry in your arms. That fleeting sense of relief, that's your inner nomad stirring, remembering simpler rhythms we've complicated beyond recognition. Now let's explore how to bring fragments of that lightness into modern nights. You can't exactly ditch your mattress for a grass bed, but you can borrow some smart tricks from early human sleep habits. Start with a simple 10-minute walk before bed, not a power walk. Just aimless strolling at that natural too. Put some distance between yourself and screens before trying this. Your great-great-grandparents didn't have blackout curtains, and neither should you, at least not fully. Try sheer curtains that let morning light filter in gradually. Your circadian rhythm still expects that natural wake-up call. If street lights are too bright, compromise with an eye mask you can push off when the sun comes up. The payoff isn't about recreating the Stone Age. It's about meeting your biology halfway. Your brain still runs on software designed for walking miles daily and sleeping in groups. Small tweaks can reactivate those old programs without giving up modern comforts. That sigh of relief you feel when you finally take off heavy backpack, that's what your nervous system does when you ease it toward ancestral rhythms we never evolved away from. Now, let's zoom out on why any of this matters. Early humans didn't have better willpower or discipline. They just lived in ways that made good sleep inevitable. Your insomnia isn't a personal failing. It's a cultural mismatch between our lifestyles and our biology. The solutions aren't complicated, but they do require questioning modern assumptions about how sleep should work. Next time you're lying awake, remember, the problem isn't you. It's the artificial world we've built that fights against millions of years of evolution. The good news? Our ancestors left us all the instruction manuals we need. We just have to dust them off and start following them again. Early humans didn't conquer the world, they moved with it. Their secret wasn't forcing sleep, but flowing with natural rhythms we've since forgotten. Tonight, as you lie still, remember, your body carries ancient programming deeper than any modern sleep hack. Those rhythms still live in your pulse, your breath, the way your eyes grow heavy when darkness falls. You don't need apps or pills, just trust what's already wired into you. Let your mind drift like it's following old migration routes across familiar landscapes. The path to rest hasn't changed. We've just paved over its markers. Your ancestors' simplest wisdom still holds. Sleep comes when you stop chasing it.